Okay, well, the iPhone 12 says it is 3 o'clock. Let the record show it is Monday, September the 26th. This is Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting. Let's call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, may you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gary Paytown?
Here.
Mr. Jeffrey Jones?
Here.
Mr. Art Graham?
Here.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski? Here. Mr. David McGraw?
Here. All right, so it looks like we have a quorum. First thing on the agenda is courtesy of Florida visitors. Richard Landis. Come on down, sir.
Thank you. My name is Richard Landis. I live at 736 2nd Street North. That's one of the 8 homes that would be facing the west side of the Dolphin Depot redevelopment project. I just have a few questions. One of them has to do with setbacks. I see that in reading the application, the proposed building height is 67 feet 6 inches, subject to the required setbacks. And on page 4, I see that that is 2 feet of total side yard setback shall be provided for each foot of the primary structure exceeding 35 feet. So, by my math, this exceeds by 32¼ feet, which would lead to 64 1/8 of a foot setback. Now, when I go to the project site, I don't know if you need me to approach to show you that doesn't have a page number, but it says Travato at the bottom, and it's like the top site. Over to setback D, I see that that is listed as 60 feet. As I said, by my calculations, I believe that setback should be 64 1/8 feet. So I'm wondering if my math is right or if I'm measuring wrong. That's one comment that I have.
Okay.
I have 2 others. I don't know if you want me to address them now.
Now just go ahead and list them off and move that item comes up on our agenda. We'll make sure you get answers for them.
Okay. The other is, I know I've seen a front view of this, but as I live along the west side, along with 7 other homeowners, I would like to see a side architectural view of this project. I would like to know what I'm going to be staring out at, what I'm going to be looking at. I'm sure the architect has that at this point, so I'd like to see what a side view looks like. The third and my final item is on that Travato top view looking down over by where the existing structure is, which is some apartments. I see what appears to be a sideway ramp on 2nd Street, which is right where my property is. And I'd like to know what that is. I'd like to know if that's an automobile ramp, is that a trash chute? If that's a trash chute, that's something that I would very much object to and ask that any trash or trash pickup be put over on the east side on 1st Street where the Margaritaville hotel is, where their trash pickup is, so that those are consistent and that's not trash pickup facing any homes or any homeowners. But I could be wrong about that. And again, I can approach someone if they don't know what I'm talking about by that side view. But I'd like to know what that is.
You know, over on the right corner, bottom right corner, there's a little thing that says trash room, so it's identified there. But
I see that.
I agree with you. On the other side, what you're talking about specifically, it does look like somewhere they'd come in and pick up a dumpster.
That's right. That's right. So that's right in front of my home. That's smelly. There are vermin. It's unsightly to put that in front of homes and houses. And right on the other side of 1st Street, as I said, where Margaritaville is, that's where, right over there is where their trash pickup is. There are no homes there. The hotel rooms don't start until the 3rd or 4th floor. So if I had a request to locate the trash or that ramp, I would request that that be relocated over to that side, so the residents, myself among them, that live on Second Street in a home, don't have to look at that or be faced with that. But again, I'm not 100% sure what that is, but that's what it looks like to me.
May I ask you, is there one there right now? Because I think there's an existing one right there.
No, there's nothing there. It's an empty lot right now.
There's not? There might have been. Because I think there used to,
From what I've seen on this, it looks like this is gonna be, I mean, there's hotel above that, right?
yeah.
So I feel like it's going, I don't feel like it'll be as visible as if there wasn't hotel built above it.
Well, it would have to be, if it's a trash chute, I mean, I see it in front of the Margaritaville Hotel. It's open now. There's one in front of the Metropolitan where a lot of times that's open. Trucks come in there to pick up the trash. It's noisy. It's smelly. It's not what a homeowner should have to be looking at if it can be put without difficulty on the other side. So that would be my request if I'm able to do that. So that's
Okay.
all I have.
All right.
Now, in terms of getting a look at the side view and the setback answer, when might I get those answers? Would those be at another meeting?
Well, this is actually coming up on our agenda today, so we definitely ask either staff or the representative
All right.
about those questions we have. And if not, we'll make sure someone from our staff gets a hold of you with those.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Mr. Divina, would you like to speak now, or will we bring this up?
We're just when we bring it up.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, any more, no more visitors. Approval of the minutes. Any questions or concerns or comments about the workshop on the 17th, or the regular meeting on the 22nd, or the workshop on the 14th? Jeff?
Okay, on the first one, the August 17th, we ran into this before, but it's a workshop, not a meeting. And it had confused people before, so I think that ought to be corrected. And that will be the same thing on the September 14th workshop, not meeting. And then, no comments on the meeting, but when we go to the September 14th workshop, I don't know if it seems to me for the records, we had a lot of discussion on the lighting plan of, why the heck is it taking years and years and years, and then we finally get something on it and it's completely different, and find out that you can't do the boardwalk and this, that, and the other. I think there ought to be reference that there was a discussion by members of the agency and questions regarding the delay and the change in orientation. And then maybe a brief explanation of why Beaches Energy can't do the boardwalk, and that we have to have, I guess internally, the Parks Department do it. And if you want to do nitpicking, Beaches Energy should be capitalized a couple times. It appears in the text.
I can't believe they didn't do that.
And then finally, my last nitpick on facade grant program, you need to say staff provided, not staff provided. So that's it. My proofreading.
Staff, did you get those?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does anybody disagree or have any issues with either one of those comments? I will entertain a motion to approve all three sets of minutes
With revisions.
with revisions. Is that your motion?
I will make that motion.
Francis, you second? Sure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, action, you've approved those minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, staff report.
Yes. Sorry. So first and foremost, on behalf of Dennis, Aaron, our Public Works Director, I'd like to let you guys know, the September Public Works meeting that was bumped to October 5th, for the 90% construction documents, pending what is to come next week, in the aftermath of any potential events we may have. We'll leave it at that, no one jinx us. They are going to bump that back to the earliest October 12th, potentially October the 19th. They want to be sure, forbid anything, any issues, but they want to be prepared to where they're not focusing on trying to prep for a meeting. They're going to focus on making sure their crews are where they need to be next week. So that will get bumped to the 12th or 19th. As soon as Dennis knows, he'll let me know, and then as long as everything is fine next week, they'll plan to start getting those flyers out, which I know we had talked about with you guys a little bit before. We are also working with Public Works right now on finalizing the bid documents for the pier parking lot project. We want to try and get that out, obviously, well before the end of the year, but we're looking at hopefully getting it out mid-October. We have bids in to review in November, and we're able to have that contract awarded to a contractor long before the temporary construction use permit for Springville expires. So when they are done and out, it is on our contractor, whoever we select, to get in there, tidy up, and build out that parking lot. So we're trying to limit any downtime. Obviously, we're going to run into things with shipping and delays, but we want to make sure on our end we're as prepared as we can be so we can get that parking lot done.
Quick question, Francis.
Can you just refresh my memory, because we did ask to see if the city council wanted to address the city of Jacksonville about those 100 spots and if we can move them across the street so we know where we're going forward. We're talking about doing a joint meeting with them.
Right.
I didn't see any bullet points or remind me because I just don't. Did we ever come up with a conclusion on that?
So per the agreement as it stands, it would have to be a much larger conversation than just can we move them. We would have had to completely rework the agreement because it does explicitly show like the parameters of that specific lot. And I will defer to Heather for further on that.
Yeah, we haven't scheduled a joint workshop yet, but that is one of the topics that could be discussed. And I'm actually meeting with the city manager tomorrow. So it's one of the things on my list to talk to him about, is scheduling that meeting and when we can squeeze it in.
So I would just for continuity purposes, or just to make sure we remember, if we just put a notation on there, on this saying, it's been brought up, we know that this plan to do this parking lot might change based off that joint discussion. Because, I would like to move forward, but I also don't want to move forward and waste that money if we're going to be pursuing that avenue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, noted.
Jeff?
Yes, on the pier parking lot, looking at your summary, there's talk of Dick's Height, this, that, and the other, and then you're mentioning that we're going to get working on a project and bidding, going out for bids. Is Dick's Height still involved?
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically parks and recreation or public works?
Essentially, no, it'll be whatever, honestly, contractor we go with, assuming we get bids, which we're hopeful we will. The Dick's Height involvement ended once we got the 100% documents. We're going to, like I said, finalize the bid package with Public Works, and I say that just because the way that they specify these bid packages out, they've got some tweaks they have to make to bid documents.
Mm-hmm.
But then once it's awarded to a contractor, we'll mainly act as liaisons with the contractor.
But it's still the Dick's Height work.
It's their plan, but they are not, their scope is done at this point.
That was it.
And then just another FYI, the art committee has plans to issue a call for artists for 2 murals and that roundabout in November. We did some tweaking and finalized the plan for call to artists. We did figure out via Florida state statute that we are not held to the same procurement requirements as we would be for other projects. So this is a little actually easier to get these pieces. So we'll be issuing that in November for the murals and the roundabout. On the 27th, tomorrow, staff is sitting down with HAF to discuss scope and fee. This will be the first round discussion we'll have with them on scope and fee for Latham Plaza. October the 3rd, I know I put this in the email, but the council will be meeting to approve the downtown plan amendment, which is that maintenance provision. And then they will be looking at the facade grant on October the 10th. Currently on October 17th, we tentatively have council looking at the scope and fee for Latham Plaza approval. If we receive a scope and fee that we see as sufficient and it's a good dollar amount and we agree with it, there may be a special called CRA meeting prior to, there'll have to be prior to going to council, but just so everyone's kind of aware, I'll make sure to send out emails so to notify you through the scope and fee process so nobody's caught off guard. The biggest change is gonna be the workshop in October. We are gonna be having our workshop on the 20th. That will be with the LDC and Comp Plan consultants. They're going to lead that workshop. They are meeting with the different boards and committees and then council. And then at the end of all that, they're gonna meet with staff to recap everything. So we have a plan moving forward. And then on our regular meeting in October, Beaches Energy did confirm they will be in attendance with samples of the lights that we looked at and discussed at our last meeting.
Quick question from Jeff.
Yeah, on the, I notice, and this is not even highlighted, so this is probably an older thing, just refresh my memory if you would. Because of what we went through with the lighting plan.
Sure.
The wayfinding signage plan,
Mm-hmm.
it says you anticipate using a piggyback contract for the sign plans.
Yes.
Have we seen anything recently on with what is going where and what everything is looking like?
Those plans were the ones you guys finalized several years ago. Those are still the plans we're gonna use. Those aren't changing. And if you remember, it's not specific to like businesses. It's more, again, kind of directional signage into areas. To be honest, we're trying to get through the bike racks, the ballers, the trash cans, kind of get those all underneath us. And then we plan to kind of go after this one next.
Is it possible to get like a link to what those plans are? Because I don't get it several years. I know I've got it somewhere, but
Okay.
if you've got it online, it would be helpful just to see since it's been a while since anybody looked at it.
Okay. Yes.
And I don't think I get, that's it.
Gary?
Taylor, I'm sorry, just a couple of quick comments. There's an item about park staff will be coming to the CRA for funding to repair portions of the skate park in the future.
Mm-hmm.
When they do that, would you ask them to also include the parking lot for the all of Sunshine Park? Because it needs some work, particularly the wheel stops and things like that, which are, half of them are torn up and many of them not in place where they need to be. I think if we're going to make some repairs, this would be a prime time to look at the rest of the paving areas in the park.
Yep.
Could you help maybe get some clarification? You may have to go back to Dennis as to what the stormwater outfall improvements are for the South Basin outfall ditch clearing project. They're awaiting bids. And I'm not sure I have a full understanding of what really that entails. We've talked about improvements that are necessary down in the South Beach District area for stormwater, that remaining projects and things, but I'm just not clear what that item is specifically. And my last question, I think, is I don't know if you have any further update on the pedestrian crossing, whether you've gotten anything from Dennis on that.
They reached out and they're still just unfortunately several weeks out on the shipment. He did not give me a specific date, but he did still say it was like 8 or 10 weeks out from getting the part shipped. So that's all the wait is. I think last time Dennis was here, he had said that they were waiting because it was just taking forever to get the pieces shipped because it was completely destroyed, like the motherboard, the computer itself, and so that's what they're still waiting on. It's just taking forever to get shipped. Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was any further update on that.
I'll reconfirm with Dennis, but at this time, I don't have another update, no, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that conclude your report?
Yes, I'm all done.
Okay, fantastic. Any more questions of staff on the staff report? Okay, let's go to old business. I don't see any old business. New business, resolution 2022-08.
Yes, so this just kind of piggybacks on what we discussed at the workshop. I know David was not here, but I did circle back with David via email. We kind of went back and forth. And David wanted to also express he agreed with the consensus of the agency on support for that as well. And so this is just a formal resolution in support of council moving forward with JBO 1.
Any questions of resolution, changes, comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Francis?
I'll make a motion to, you want to approve, you want a motion to approve or not, right?
Motion
Yeah.
to approve.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2022-08 CRA support for JB1.
For a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and second, resolution 2022-08. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gary Paytown,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Frances Pavlovsky,
Yes.
Mr. David McGraw.
Yes.
By your action, you have approved the motion. Okay, item for discussion. Anyone with new business?
Not for me.
Item for discussion.
I will
Dolphin Depot.
turn this one over to the planning director, Ms. Heather Everland.
Thank you, Taylor. Mr. Chair, I'm just going to give a brief staff report, and then I'll answer any questions that came up, and then I'll turn it over to the applicant's agent, Mr. DiBenau, to provide any additional information or answers for you. The Dolphin Depot project, as some of you know, because I know several of you were here when it was originally rezoned in 2015 to RD zoning to allow for a hotel and multifamily project with some component of commercial. The zoning was amended, in 2017 to change a couple of details and provide a different elevation and architectural style for the project. And the new owner that's going to actually be building this project wanted to make a few other small tweaks, really mostly to the details of actually what the commercial space would entail. It was a little bit nebulous in the original applications, and they've really nailed down exactly what they want to do on the commercial piece. And what they are looking to do is a 4,000 square foot restaurant, which would be part of the hotel, around 1,000 square feet of retail space. But the footprint and elevation of the project remain mostly unchanged, and I have some slides I can show. The number of hotel rooms and multifamily apartments is also remaining unchanged. So the site plan, again, relatively the same as before. I do want to address the setbacks. So based on the settlement agreement back from '04 when the height was capped at 35 feet, this property was granted 68 feet. And how that's tabulated is based on the side yard setbacks. So they're cumulative. So in this case, setback B, I believe that says, is 59 feet, but you add to that the setback that's on First Street, which is actually 6 feet. So when you add those together, you get the ability to do the 67.5 feet. I know it can be kind of confusing, and again, we have to follow the settlement agreement in the way that it's written. With some of these properties, the way it was written was to reflect the way the code used to read prior to the height cap in 2004. Some properties downtown were allowed that increase in height where you would take the building in 2 feet on the side yards to go up 1 foot, which is exactly what they are proposing. So we've done and double checked the math. It is correct for them to have the 67.5 feet. The other issue, well, let me go on to the next slide to kind of, I guess, answer the question. This is the south elevation of the building, so this would be what's on 6th Avenue North. We don't have any other elevations for what it would look like on the other sides. This was all that was provided in the application. What's shown on that west side of the building, there is a dumpster. Let's see if I can get a little clicker to work. And again, this has been pre-reviewed by Public Works as far as being able to access this. This is going to be open. The building stops right where that green dot is. Sorry, my hands are shaky today. But this is some open parking, EV charging stations, and then this is the entrance into the garage and the covered parking. But this is correctly identified as a dumpster location. I certainly can't speak for the applicant and the agent on whether they're willing to move that or whether they can even move that. Again, it would require discussions with Public Works. I think that covers some of the questions, but if you guys have additional ones or clarification, either myself or Mr. DiBenau can try to answer those.
What are the city rules as far as dumpster enclosures?
They do have to be fully enclosed, and the dumpster has to remain covered, obviously open it to fill it, but, and there's certain hours that they pick up. I know there have been issues with the one across the street at Margaritaville, pulling it out and trying to get it from First Street. So again, Public Works is pretty specific about where a dumpster enclosure can be and the concrete underneath it, so they can access it, because they back in with those trucks on all of these dumpsters to be able to unload them. So this was an agreed upon location that worked for both the applicant and then Public Works, but it is required to be enclosed and covered.
Jeff?
My question on that, and it would involve the setbacks as well. I'm envisioning that if they wanted to and it was legal, you could actually build part of the building over it, make it high enough that the trucks can back up, open the doors, and so when it's not being picked up, the dumpster is actually in a building. But that would require going up to pass the setback on that side, so I don't know if that's even a possibility. But I just tossed that out there.
I'm sure if you offer them more setback, they'll take it.
Well, I mean, that would mean you wouldn't have to go the full length of the property on the setback. You take it up and you can even make that a nice building feature, as opposed to a wooden fence or something enclosing a dumpster.
Francis?
So I'm trying to wrap my head around this block because I won't get all the time, but my mind is not remembering exactly what's on 6th. I think there was, I'm sitting here trying to look at it now. I guess the question is when was this public works agreement done, and when did those places across the street, residents across the street, get built in relation to each other?
They were built about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, so like this is before the residentials were there.
They were being built before.
So part of me feels like that might be a discussion that needs to be had. And I'm looking at, so here's the street. And across on the other side, so I was like, well, what happens if we move it to 6th instead of First Street, since we were having trouble with that? And it looks like there are houses on the other side too, so it's the same kind of, no, that's a shopping center.
Yeah.
That's Telecom.
And this is
So-
one of our corridors.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be, what would be the process to request a review of this residential concern with the new owners and Public Works? Like, what would the process be of that? Because I personally can understand if that decision was made on the placement prior to those being occupied, it might be something to consider.
Yeah, I will certainly, obviously on willingness to have that discussion, defer to the applicant's agent, but when we have a project like this, it requires a pre-application meeting, so that's with all the departments that would review plans when they come in. And so those decisions are made at that point in time. So this would have been discussed in 2015, that location and several other items related to the site. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you want to give the applicant's agent an opportunity to provide any additional information or answer any questions, that'd be helpful.
Keep it on, name and address for the record, and I guess you can kind of chime in and fill in some
Sure.
blanks.
Sure, thank you. Steve Deben, I wanted to drive to 1200. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Travado. Yeah, I think Heather did a great job summarizing the limits of our request. We're really focused primarily on 6th Avenue North. Previously, where it says sundries, beach gear, retail, and hotel condo lobby, that was all storage units and lockers. So there was no activation at all on 6th Avenue North. It was just going to be a blank wall, maybe with some windows, maybe not. And so the whole purpose of this rezoning is to do everything that's in the yellow in kind of the southeast corner of the building. Everything else is exactly the way it was approved in 2015 and 17. So the location of the dumpster on 2nd Street, that's already approved. It's not even really a part of the application. It was approved in 15, it was approved in 17, and there's not the ability to cover it with a building or do anything else as you've described. Remember too that the height for this site was dictated by a court. So the site plan, while this exact site plan wasn't in front of the judge, the setbacks and all the other characteristics of the development were. And so we considered making changes to the site plan and talked with staff and with Heather's predecessor about the limitations of changing the site plan and the elevation, and we all concluded that it would be best not to modify it dramatically at all. So the setbacks are exactly the way that Heather described, setback D and setback C. There's a total of 66 feet. That's in compliance with the court order. Setback B plus setback A is in compliance with the court order. The location of the building, the footprint of the building, virtually identical within a foot on every direction from what was approved originally. And so without wanting to risk anything running afoul of the court's order, that's why we've come up with this. So the whole purpose of this rezoning is just to accommodate the retail that's along 6th Avenue North. Everything else is the same from 2015 and 2017. In terms of the elevations, we don't have a side elevation in the building done. So I don't have one to offer, and I won't have one to offer for probably 6 months. But the building, the front elevation, which we produced, is consistent with the building elevation that was approved in 2017 and also discussed in 2015. And so I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just trying to outline the limitations that we're operating under. And again, the purpose of this application was really to activate 6th Avenue North and not have it be just a blank wall with no doors, no activity.
Francis?
So, and I'm not being difficult, so thank you for that. I understand that it's just that part that you're looking at. I just was kind of wondering if maybe like the good neighbor rule or good faith or what have you. I don't know what the options are for the person you're representing are. I don't know. I was just kind of getting out there saying, because back when this was discussed, there were not residents there. They are going to be your neighbors. And just like, you know, other locations, I'm just kind of just wondering, it looks like there's a place over here that's not covered as well. I didn't know if it's just like leaving things a little bit, just making certain changes is something that might be considered, and I'm not even saying you have to. I was just saying that was a concern was brought up first review of this amendment to the plan, and it's just something I just wanted to see if it's something that could be, or the steps would be for that. That's all.
We will, I mean, again, we'll look at it between now and you know, when we get to the city council, but the challenges are, you know, again, the turning radius for the trucks, you can't get it back down into where those handicap spaces are.
Right.
Unless you give up parking spaces on 6th Avenue North. I'm not sure that, you know, you guys want to do that. And there's really not a convenient way to back it in and get the trash, you know, and still have handicap spaces. I mean, certainly you could move it, you could locate it somewhere else, but look, we'll take a look. We'll take a look at it. We'll see if there's another way to do it, but.
Because like back up there in the top part, I think that 7th right up there on the top, I didn't know if that was something, and you're right, it might be where you have to lose a lot of parking spaces and whatnot as well. It's just something I wanted to make sure was addressed because I honestly did not see that when I looked at this.
There's residential.
And there's residential there,
Seven.
and there's residential there too, so yeah, it's kind of a.
It's either the right side or the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, the trash room location also obviously is important because it's in proximity to wherever the dumpster is. I mean, just eyeballing it, the trash room going out to the loading area where it's crosshatched up on 7th, you know, maybe that's a possibility. But somebody's gonna have a dumpster on their side, no matter where we go. And so we'll take a look at it. If there's an alternative, we'll talk about it. But frankly, you know, it's already approved. So we're not asking to change it. So yeah, in the spirit of being a good neighbor, we'll look at it. But I'm not optimistic, and I don't want to offer any false hope that there might be a change.
No promises.
Yeah, that's right. But we'll look at it. We'll examine it. Everything else is the way that Ms. Ireland described it, and you know, we're available to answer any questions that you may have beyond those that we've discussed already. But focusing on 6th Avenue North is really the purpose of the application.
Gary?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just a couple of quick questions, and this one may be one that Heather needs to answer. In looking at the setback requirement to the existing property, it calls for only 2.5 feet. At one point in time, it was 7.5 feet. I'm just curious as to why the change was made and reduced down to only 2.5 feet.
You're talking about the setback from the parking lot that's kind of in the middle top to the apartments that are there now.
You can see where it says
Yeah.
existing there, and then next to it, it says 2.5 foot landscape setback. It used to be 7.5 feet.
I do not have the previous application in front of me, so I don't know, Steve, if you have that.
Well, what,
I think it was always 2.5 feet, but I could be wrong.
it was always 2.5 feet, you come with the 2017 approval.
Well, it just shows up in the document as you read through it, that you're changing it from 7.5 to 2.5. And so I just wanted to, again, I don't have the history on this project, so I'm just trying to get a better understanding of why that was reduced. I mean, I would think we'd like to keep it at least 7.5 feet for a larger structure, and that's going on the site.
Well, and so if I could clarify that, where that setback is it's a setback for the parking area. The building does not go all the way up there.
Right.
So that's a parking area setback. The building is setback, whatever that setback be is, I think 59 feet. So that's just for the parking area.
Okay. My real concern with this project is what it's doing to First Street. We are now creating a canyon between Margaritaville and this project that I just have a real difficult time with. We've pretty much eliminated the activity along First Street, which is what we've been all trying to develop for some time, because First Street is the main corridor for retail and development and so forth. And it just feels like we've kind of turned our back on First Street. I appreciate the fact that this project activates 6th Avenue North, which is a retail component that we wanted to encourage in the way of development. But turning our back on First Street, I think, is a real mistake. And I think we need to somehow take a look at what we can do, because right now it's all parking along First Street. And I'm assuming there's at least a second level of parking, because it shows a ramp going up, and I'm assuming there's at least one additional level above that. So again, that's a blank wall facing a blank wall of Margaritaville. And I would like us to get creative and try to figure out how we can solve it. And maybe this is, and I'm going to throw this out there, maybe this is an opportunity for the art committee to take a look at something that goes on that wall, that works with the developer to create some kind of an artistic element that goes on the wall to liven that whole block along there, because right now there's nothing there. And I think we really need to look at it much more creatively. I'd love for all of us to sit down and take a look at this and come up with a good solution that makes this an advantage for the city rather than what I think right now is going to be a disadvantage.
Well, if I could clarify, and I'm sure Steve will have something to add to, several things, again, that limit this property. Like he mentioned, this 6th Avenue is, it basically faces that retail corridor, so there is some level of requirement to have that front-facing retail on 6th Avenue, and they've actually provided more than what was originally approved. There is a second level to the parking garage, but this side, this east side, is where the multifamily residential is. So it won't be a blank wall. It will have, and again, I haven't seen an elevation, but going to, this is the south, there's balconies, so hotel rooms. It'll be very similar, I imagine, and I'll let Mr. Deba now elaborate on it, but this will be the multifamily side, the hotel side over here with the shared amenities. So again, it won't be a blank wall. It'll have something similar, I would imagine, to the elevation shown here
Well, I
on
would
the
disagree
south
with
side.
that, Heather, because the first 20 feet is nothing but a blank wall if that's parking for the first two levels.
It would be,
And when you look down in your perspective, a human's perspective, as you look down through there, there's only 2 to 3 stories up, so what they're really going to be seeing is a blank wall with a blank wall on the opposite side, which is existing, which is Margaritaville. We need to take a look at what we're going to do. Maybe it's nothing more than some neon lighting that goes along there. It creates an artistic element that could spell, here we are coming into the downtown area. You know, this is a unique place that you're coming to, and we can do it with some kind of specialized lighting on that wall. But something rather than, because I don't know what the finish is of this, but it may be nothing more than a painted block wall along there. I would like us to get a little more creative in reference, and otherwise we really got a problem, because you now have the refinery, which is north of this area, and it almost becomes like an island in itself, separated from the rest of the retail and restaurants and things that we're trying to develop in the downtown area. And it'd be nice to tie all of that together in some way. And again, maybe it's the art committee that has a solution to it, but hopefully we can look at it.
This is Steve again. The only thing I can say is we'll take a look at that as well. Yeah, the limitation on First Street is one that, that we're kind of stuck with. There's really not a lot we can do there. It won't be a blank wall. Certainly there'll need to be open spaces between the floors where the cars are parked, because you have to have ventilation. If we add some type of screening or artistic element, I'll talk to the owner and see if we can come up with something that's acceptable. I don't really know I really don't know what else to say. I agree with you. If the site could be designed differently so that we had retail wrapping the entire block, we would have done that. But there's really not a way to accommodate everything within the height limit that was previously approved. So all I can say is we'll try. We'll look at it. We'll try.
I think with good heads, a lot of creative people sitting down and putting their heads together, I think we can come up with a very good solution. And I think it'll be a win-win for everybody. And that's what I really want it to be, is a win-win. Win for the developer, win for the city, that we can, really be proud of in the way this project moves forward. I'm not against this project. I think it's a great asset. I love the idea of the mixed-use development that it is and so forth. I mean, if it was me personally, I'd be willing to get rid of the parking along First Street, that segment, and turn that into retail or something, rather than requiring additional parking. Reduce the parking down a little bit and put more retail in. But that's a much bigger discussion. But let us see what we can do, because I think we can come up with a solution.
Francis?
Thank you.
I just want to say I am very happy that there's a street sign being activated and it not just being blank. My only other comment is that we have to be very careful on this board. I mean, this is private property, and we can help, request, certain features or certain, aspects and provide our concerns, which I do agree that, that should have been shared, but we just really need to make sure that we say, our concern is that it's not a wind tunnel. We would like it to be nice. We don't think your client is going to not make it nice. We would just like that as a concern. So we as a board can't dictate what you do necessarily. We could just kind of request, hey, this is our vision, this is what we'd like you to consider, and could you be a good neighbor and do so? That's kind of where I want to at. So I don't know if we're able, I know that you're talking about, having joint meetings and whatnot. I think we just, how do you see what they're proposing? So we aren't in a disaster zone, and we aren't at a fault at this point, because we don't even know what their side view really looks like yet. So I think if they did their designs, whatnot, it'd be nice to see it, but technically it is their property. That's kind of how I feel.
Jeff?
I actually like this a lot, the way it was changed. And I just, to the extent that you're proposing, Gary, that we move some of this over to First Street, I would disagree entirely, because that would make that an island of retail with nothing around it. There's vacant office retail on the building on the corner on the opposite side. They've never been able to really utilize it because, First Street is a transit street. Our avenues are access things for pedestrians coming to the beach, for parking and whatnot. So this actually helps activate 6th Avenue with some important retail corridor. If we flip things around to the other side, this stuff is not going to work, and then we'll have a blank wall on what's supposed to be a corridor.
I think it's just looking at just adding more, not necessarily relocating.
Well, on 6th Avenue North. I think that's important because for what's existing across the street and what may end up being developed there as well. So I like this personally.
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo more of what he just said, is, you know, when I look at this plan and I see that restaurant on the corner, I mean, you have, every corner is now occupied by something in the 6th Avenue and First Street, and I think that, you know, that's gonna draw people into that area and create a destination spot, so, you know, when I'm thinking about looking down at that and seeing, you know, each corner, we got the Land Shark, you got Marina, and then the Deli Cone building, and now we got a nice, you know, restaurant. That's an awesome little block right there. Something we don't have, so that's all I was gonna say.
Gary?
Just to respond to Jeff's comments, I agree about 6th Avenue North, and I'm not asking that anything be changed along 6th Avenue North. I think that needs to stay. It strengthens the initial vision plan. What I'm just trying to do is trying to avoid a blank wall along First Street. And how do we do something that's different along First Street that makes that an interesting corridor down through there, particularly with, again, the blank wall across the street. And again, it could be something along the lines of, you know, artwork rather than, you know, retail along there. But we need to look at something.
We just have to see the answer first, but yeah, sorry, I'm talking after.
Okay, fine. Anybody else have any comments, questions, or concerns about the Dolphin Depot project? Staff, what do you need from us?
Excuse me, we don't approve this in the form of a resolution, but just basically a recommendation that we would carry forward to City Council when it gets to them. So similar how the Planning Commission looks at standards for rezoning, the CRA is looking to see if this project is consistent with the downtown redevelopment plan. Considering how there's very little change, this actually, I think, in staff's opinion, makes it more consistent with the downtown redevelopment plan. It's already been approved, so it's honestly a pretty straightforward thing, but what we're looking for is your recommendation to carry forward.
So the only changes that are actually before us are the areas that are in yellow that Mr. Deacon talked about earlier, so you just basically want a thumbs up or thumbs down, and we agree with that.
Yeah, if we could take a vote from everyone and to basically formalize that you find it consistent with the downtown redevelopment plan for the amendments that they're making to the existing approved RD zoning.
Is anybody opposed to what Heather just said? Gary?
Well, the only thing I would add is that the recommendation would be with the consideration that we both, that, as Mr. Devenauer said, that we would look at the trash removal aspect, and that we would also look at First Street in the way of what could be done from a design standpoint along First Street.
So your motion would be, or your recommendation would be to approve everything that's suggested in yellow, but give some consideration to relocation of trash and doing something along First.
That's right.
We can ask them to look at it, we can't force it.
Yeah, as far as the recommendation,
It's already approved.
If you don't want to know,
Yeah.
don't comment. That's cool.
Like you said,
Whatever you want to do.
Say it's no. Or yes.
I have no idea what you
I mean, there's, in the criteria, it's established specifically says that we can put in any, the planning commission and the CRA can put in any kind of recommendations that they feel are appropriate. And that's what
We're not saying you're wrong, I just, he's clarifying if we're trying to mandate it. The answer to the question is no, we can't mandate it, but we can make a recommendation.
But again, I go to, all we're dealing with is the yellow. We'd have to make a separate recommendation for the existing plans that they go back and take a look at. But all we're asked to do is recommend the yellow.
Actually, that's probably a better idea, let's just go ahead, thumbs up or thumbs down the yellow, and then if you want to add something after that, yeah, we can do that. Does that work?
Trying to think procedurally how to word it, because I don't think there's anything wrong with making a suggestion that the developer look into these things as part of the approval, if that's the direction that you're gonna go. And we can just include that note to City Council that that discussion has taken place. I mean, Mr. Debenow's already agreed to look into it and talk to the owner and see what they can do. So again, can't be something that you guys require them to move the dumpster or require them to add retail, for example, or art. But certainly could be part of the recommendation from the CRA that the property owner and the developer at least look into those items. I don't think there's anything wrong with making that a condition of approval.
Does that work for everybody? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused in that with the way this was presented, at least in the way that I've read all this documentation, is that we're looking at this whole development, that we're making an approval on what has been submitted for the development, not just the stuff in yellow, but the whole thing. I mean, that's what all the documentation is that we have in front of us. It doesn't say you only need to take a look at the yellow area. So,
Well, I'm happy to clarify. So really what they're requesting is, as mentioned, the change in this RD rezoning is just what's reflected in yellow. Everything else is the same. The setbacks, the amount of parking spaces to meet the requirement, the dumpster location, the height, all of those things have already been approved. And they were actually prepared to submit building permits to get started prior to making some small adjustments to the commercial piece and just really hammering down what they actually wanted to do. So again, it's already an approved project with an approved site plan. This is a rezoning amendment to make some tweaks to the commercial piece specifically.
Well, I agree with Heather. We're just, again, dealing with this yellow area. The fact that all the other documents are there is because this is an add-on to an existing approval. So a lot of that stuff has been previously approved that you were looking at. So that's what I understand.
It's there for courtesy. So, Heather had a suggestion on the floor. Does anybody disagree with what her plan was? We just need to give them direction. Okay, so everybody's saying yes, Heather. Let the record show.
Got it. Thank you.
Is there anything else, item for discussion that's done? Do we have anything else to talk about in this meeting? And
That staff report at the bottom of the typo. We're obviously still working on the kinks in our new system.
our next meeting, we have that workshop, you said let's move to the 5th, potentially.
That's the 90% construction stuff. That's potentially moved to the 12th. Our next workshop is not until October the 20th with the LDC and comp plan consultants. And I'm gonna send out plenty of notice, calendar invite, et cetera.
Okay, so if there's nothing else to come before us, we're adjourned.